Yep, we are. We're live. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to a live edition of Celtic Transfer Talk. A video I wasn't intending on doing, a live show I wasn't intending on doing today. You know, I thought to myself, I'll wake up, I'll get a video recorded for tomorrow that I had planned. I'll get the match preview filmed for Livingston. Sorry, not Livingston, for Hamilton tomorrow, and that'll be up today. And now we are here doing a live Celtic Transfer Talk. Now, one criticism I've had of this January transfer window has been that there's been no transfers to talk about. Celtic have been very quiet within the window, that we've not really done much. And, you know, I've been sitting here waiting to make a Celtic transfer talk. You know, I've been anticipating something exciting to speak about, but we've not had it. And here we are, we've flipped the coin completely, and we're getting the opportunity to now sit down here and speak about the fact that one of our starting 11 players is now leaving the club, and it is really, I think all Celtic fans will agree, it took us by surprise. It wasn't something we expected. Apparently, it has been quietly building some traction over the past few weeks, especially, of course, with Celtic being involved. But, you know, I've not seen much on it, and now we sit here in the position knowing that one of our players is about to leave the club. Now, the details aren't exactly vast. We don't have much concrete information to work off. But we're going to talk about the transfer in this edition of the live show. We're going to talk for 10, 15, maybe 20 minutes on the departure of, or the what looks to be departure of Jeremie Frimpong. And we're going to talk about, you know, everything from transfer fees to replacements to everything that we can kind of cover. And I'll try and get you guys involved as well with some of the questions. I see people piling in. I think like right now we've got about 250 viewers. Thank you everybody who's tuning in just now. We're going to talk about transfer. So let's start with the concrete information. Let's start with the details that were actually put in front of us this morning as a broker. About 45 minutes now since the news was kind of first brought to us in the press conference by Neil Lennon and then by the relevant sources, Sky Sports, PLZ and such, were posting the information. So the quotes go as follows. Neil Lennon said, we did everything we could to try and entice the player to stay, but he made it clear a while ago that his ambition was to leave. We received a really robust offer for him. We are disappointed to lose him, but that's football. So, and he's confirmed he is abroad speaking to a club about a permanent transfer. So, you know, he's wanted to leave the club for a while. That's taken me by surprise. Frimpong was always one of those players for me that looked very happy to be at the club. And I suppose this season, I seen a perfect tweet that just summed it up over the last 10 minutes before I came on live here. And the tweet was, you know, I used to look at players and think, why? And now I look at players and think, fair enough. I don't think that we can be surprised at the minute with players wanting to leave the club with the way the club's been run from head to toe, both on and off the park. If I was a player, I would be probably keen to get out the door as well at the minute at Celtic, considering the way things are going. So, you know, it's a transfer that we weren't prepared for, but it's something we're just going to have to deal with. Like, Frimpong was always a player who was going to eventually leave the club. He was never going to stay here. I think he's just left probably a time we didn't expect. I would never have expected him to leave in a January window. And I also didn't expect him to leave so soon in his Celtic career. Very quickly, thank you very much, Derry Shearer's Day, £5. He says, can see a majority of key players trying to force a move. Maybe not now, but definitely in the summer. Everyone's unhappy, and what is there to play for? Thank you, Derry Shearer. Very much appreciated the £5 donation. We'll come on to that. I'm going to speak about that as the show goes on. But let's talk about Frimpong for now. Apparently, so from what I'm hearing, there is no concretes, there is no definites of where it is. The two teams that I have seen flown about as much as Bayer Leverkusen and Roma. The way it seems to be going, it looks to be leaning more towards the Bayer Leverkusen side. I think that the talk is that he's in Germany, but it's one of those two sides. And there's, you know, I don't know what to expect for a fee. Now, Frimpong for me, and we'll talk about Frimpong as a player in a minute. And we'll talk about him as a player and his impact on Celtic in a minute. So the fees that are getting thrown about is what I'm saying is something around the region of £12.5 million that can rise to £15 million. So that to me is more than I would have expected at this point for Jeremie Frimpong. Anyway, he's a player who I think eventually could have went on to go for more. I don't think there's any denying in that, but I did not expect us to get as much money for Jeremie Frimpong at this moment in time as what we are getting. So you can look at it as a positive in that sense, but the big question is, where are we going to reinvest it? Now, for me, realistically, what Celtic are going to do is go and try and sign somebody like Stephen O'Donnell, whose contract expires at Motherwell this week, I think. We will go for a cheap option once more. And I don't know if that is a symbol or an indication. I don't know if that's an indication as to what we're going to see over the coming months. If we do go for a cheap option, is it because there is a new manager going to be coming in over the next few months? Maybe in the summer, maybe in the next few months, who knows? Or is it just Celtic being Celtic? Now, for me, it's Celtic being Celtic. It's us being shrewd. It's us being, thinking in the mindset that we've already got a good enough team, which we don't. It's weird. It's a player with such high potential, a player that was done for so much. Danny McGrain was ranting, raving about him. And I think City 30% goes to, I'm seeing a message come in just now. That's a point I was going to bring up. Man City are apparently due 30% of the transfer fee as well. So there is a lot of negatives to this. I think it is more negative than positive. And the overwhelming negative is it carries on the joke of what is Celtic at the minute. And it carries on the narrative of what has been a season of destruction at the club. Destruction from the guys at the top. The club being killed inside out. Negligence. All these buzzwords that we have been speaking about time and time again. It kind of just all comes back to that. This is a player we shouldn't have been prepared to lose. And now you think about it, if Frimpong is so desperate to leave at this time after, as I've already mentioned, looking like one of the players who was very happy to be at the club, a guy who was looking like he was on top of the world last season. If this is happening with him, what else are we going to see over the coming months? What other players are going to leave the club that we did not expect to leave the club? For a while, we've all been prepared. We've all been set up, I think, that we've all expected the likes of Ncham, Edouard, Ayer to leave the club over the coming months. I think we've all expected that. We've all been ready to accept the fact that they will be going. But players like Frimpong weren't part of that. So where now does this rebuild come? Where does it start? Who else is involved? It's crazy. £5 donation from Alan Stanway. Thank you very much, Alan. Says, buy yourself a pint, mate. Cheers, fan. But this season has been a disaster for you. Next season will hopefully be more interesting. I hope so as well, mate. I don't know when I'm going to buy the pint right enough because the pubs are still shut. But when they're back open, I will. Thank you, Alan. So, it's sad to see a promising player leave the club at a time like this. But look, it's one of those ones that I just wish that I just wish that we could have fixed this season. A long time ago. Maybe if we did make a change in October, maybe if we did make a change in November, maybe if we got Lennon out then, maybe players would be enticed to stay at the club. Maybe they would have wanted to stay. Maybe they would have wanted to be part of something exciting. Perhaps we would have been part of a title challenge. But look, it's all ifs, buts, and maybes. Frimpong is now leaving. I think it's now a question of who we go and sign now, who we replace him with, because it can't be a Stephen O'Donnell. We need to go and reinvest this money. This is a window which we needed to spend money anyway, but now even more so because we've lost a starting 11 player. I'm seeing a lot of messages flying. Are we going to be going with Ralston? Is Anthony Ralston going to be our starting right back for the rest of the season? That is a joke. We have a right to be laughed at for a majority of things that have happened this season, right? We've had, there's no denying that. No denying that at all. I think that Celtic have been laughed at, and quite rightly so. But if we're playing Ralston at right back, it's even more laughable if he is going to be starting. A lot of people saying Ayer starting at the right back. Yep, I can see that happening too. But once again, we should not be in a position where we are needing to play Christopher Ayer at right back. We are Celtic. We have the money there to spend. We have the club that is a very desirable club to play for some, of course, not at this point in time. But the fact that we're having to play a guy who's a centre half at right back, it's laughable. It's an absolute joke. So, I put up a tweet earlier on the Celtic Thunder podcast account asking for the thoughts. The tweet simply said, thoughts on Frimpong leaving, player with high potential out the door, totally by surprise. A signal of what's going on at the club. Will we even reinvest? So, fire in your opinions in the chat just now. I'll read through some of the tweets. Craig said, can't blame him. Lennon has no interest in coaching and developing players. Couldn't name one player who's improved since he came back. And a very good point. A lot of people talking about Frimpong at the club, right? So this is one point that I haven't. This is one player that I have. The one point I haven't brought up yet. My opinions on Frimpong as a player. Frimpong as a player for me has been a very frustrating player at times for Celtic, but no denying with a lot of potential there. Got to remember, the guy's only 20 years old. I think he's allowed to be frustrating as a player. He was signed with the intention to be a prospect. He wasn't signed with the intention to be in a position that we have him in now. I don't think that when we signed him, any of us expected him to be Celtic's starting right back. I don't think that was the intention, but it turned out to be what the reality was. Very frustrating player. His end product's poor. I think he's only got 3 assists for the club. And but he has that kind of spark about him that made him one of the most entertaining players on the side at times, and one of the only players who brought a sort of energy to the squad when a lot of other players simply couldn't be arsed. So he was frustrating. So in that terms, I'm like, £15 million, if that does rise to be the fee, I'm like, okay, fair enough. Because I don't think he was the greatest option we could have ever had. But, under the right coaches, right? If it wasn't Neil Lennon in charge of Celtic, and once again, we're coming back to ifs, buts, and maybes. If Neil Lennon wasn't in charge, I think Frimpong would be twice, 3 times the player that we've seen with him. And he's been very good at points. So, it's annoying. The potential is the one thing, and with better coach, I think he'd be a better player. Don't get why the board are letting him go under Lennon. He's not going to develop, but Lennon won't be here next season. Under a new manager, Frimpong can be a star. Just sums up the club at the moment, says Matthew Wilson. A photo of Jeremie Toljan was fired in. The Resistance Review said, no, won't reinvest properly, letting another young prospect leave is very disappointing. JC says, if that 10 million gets invested in a good centre-back and a right-back, then it's good business, but I doubt it, though. And Aaron, finally, he says, don't blame him, wish he could stay, but he's young and will improve under better coaching. Wonder if we will welcome a new right-back in during this window. So, it's quite disastrous that the club is kind of falling apart on and off the park. And it's one of those things as well. How much more does this harm the attraction of the Celtic job? Is one thing that we haven't really brought up. Somebody like an Eddie Howe, he's just the name that I pluck out the top of the hat because he's the one that's the favourite for the job, right? You look at a name like an Eddie Howe, he looks at what's happening at the club at the minute. He looks at Jeremie Frimpong now leaving the club as well, and who's a young guy who's maybe enjoying a future at Celtic and he's wanting to go. Does that not kind of turn off the idea of coming to the club for managers? For me, it would. But we've got to just keep going with it. I think that we've got very few days left in this transfer window, and we've got to go and now get a right back. And it can't be the likes of Stephen O'Donnell. It can't be. It needs to be money spent. It has to be someone who I think equals the energy levels brought to the team by Frimpong, but also equals the kind of potential brought to the club by Frimpong. And I think it's hard to go out and sign. In that sense, it's hard to go out and sign a 20-year-old that we know is going to be good because it can go either way. And our recruitment this season has been bad enough. But we need to bring somebody that's going to come in a longer-term deal. Somebody we know we're going to get a good few years out of and fill the kind of the void that is now being left behind by Jeremie Frimpong. But we'll wait and see. So I thrown up some of the comments on screen to end the live show. We'll talk about we'll talk about stuff like that. A lot of people, of course, Brody up on the screen here, he says we'll play Ayer at right back. I think that could become the reality of it, but it is frustrating that we have to play Ayer at right back. And you've got to remember as well how thin in the ground we are with centre halves. Julian is out for so long, and we're going to have to play Ayer at right back. We're crumbling. We're absolutely crumbling. We're in a shambles, says Jack McCardle. Very well put. I mean, we are a shambles at the minute, and look, it goes from head to toe. Derry Shearer bringing in players like O'Donnell to replace first team players is going to bring the quality of the team. Going to bring the quality of the team if it continues to happen. I don't know if I got a word there because to me it looks like bring the quality of the team down. Let's see what else has been said. Money being kept until summer, I presume, for a new manager. Ewan McShaffrey says McShaffrey. Look, I think that could be the way that things go. I wouldn't be surprised. It's one of those ones that, if that's the case and we do have a good manager there, it's understandable to an extent, but how much further behind are we going to fall apart? Are we going to fall behind this? How much further are we going to fall? Are we going to just keep accepting that we're going to fall behind Rangers even further this season? Rangers are fine. We have thin in the ground defensively. Things could get worse. Worst. Did I say worst there? What a clown. I'm trying to read through the comments and I'm looking at different ones, and it's chilled back or chilled ice PCK even predicting Hibs to finish second if this keeps up. There's a lot there. Look, it's a weird time. And we'll need to wait and see how many players leave the club over the next 6 months to kind of assess this rebuild. But I think that Frimpong leaving is an indication of what is going to be bigger than what we thought. That's how I would sum it up. I think that we need to be ready now to bring in. We need to get a manager in through the door quickly as possible. That's it now for me, because things are just going to go from bad to worse. I mean, please, Luke is saying, do you think this is the start of the rebuild? Look, I don't think the rebuild is anywhere near started yet, because there's no talk of us getting Lennon out the door. Players are going to continue wanting to leave. And players are going to not want to come to Celtic if we keep Lennon at the club. So, yep, it's a weird one. Let me know. Anyway, this is going up to watch back later if you have missed the show. Jeremie Frimpong looks set to leave Celtic, but we'll see what happens. Celtic need to get stuff done. Celtic need to get business started. We're falling behind even further. It's a joke at the minute. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you all for coming to the live show. Match preview for Hamilton will be up later on the channel. Can we try and be positive in that? I don't think so. I think the overwhelming feeling at Celtic just now is just continuous depression. That just seems to be it. So, I'll speak to you all later. Enjoy, and I will be live streaming on Twitch tonight. I see a question come in. We will be live streaming on Twitch. I'll see you over there. I'll see you all.